This is MTG Burgeoning, and in this video we will showcase the building blocks to a Lifegain themed build with Bilbo, Birthday Celebrant, as the commander. Although this presentation can act as a standalone video for crafting a Lifegain themed EDH deck with Bilbo as the commander, be sure to also look in the description of this video for links to the primer video for this series, its playlist, as well as a list of the cards featured in this video. With the intro out of the way, let's start deck teching by introducing Bilbo, Birthday Celebrant, a 2/3 legendary halfling rogue for Abzan colors. That's 1 white, 1 black, and 1 green mana. If we would gain life, we gain that much life plus 1 instead. So if we have a spell or ability that says gain 3 life, Bilbo says let's gain 4 instead. We can pay 2 in the aforementioned Abzan colors and tap and exile Bilbo, Birthday Celebrant, to search our library for any number of creature cards and put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle. But we can only activate this ability if we have 111 more life. Yes, you read that correctly. 100 or 11 or more life. 111 or more life. Well, in a dedicated Lifegain deck here, that's not going to be a problem at all. Bilbo is going to be able to sit back, enjoy that monstrous birthday cake in the background. Wouldn't mind a slice of that as we accumulate all kinds of life gain, and then we'll activate his ability, we'll empty our library of creatures, and simply overwhelm our opponents and just crush them through combat on our way to victory. All right, so Bilbo, as old and as wise as he can't do it all by himself. So the following cards are a bunch of cards to support this Lifegain theme, all associated to getting to the 111 life or more total so that we can activate Bilbo. These cards are being presented in no specific order except through the alphabet. So our first card here, it is Alhammarret's Archive. For 5 generic mana, this legendary artifact reads, if we would gain life, we gain twice that much life instead. And as you can see, we're already off and running. And as an additional bonus, if we would draw a card, except for the first card we draw each during our draw steps, then we draw 2 cards instead. So just note, the card that we draw during our draw step does not trigger Alhammarret's Archive. We would need a peripheral source to draw that card so that the archive can trigger and put a second card into our hand. That is a nice secondary benefit, but make no mistake about it, gaining double the life every time we gain life is the primary reason why Alhammarret's Archive is included in this Bilbo deck. All right, continuing our Lifegain theme, we have Angel of Vitality, a 2/2 flying angel for 2 and 1 white mana. If we would gain life, we gain that much life plus 1 instead. Where have we heard that before? Of course, it's from Bilbo. Word for word, it says the exact same thing that Bilbo does. But Angel of Vitality is not done yet because it gives creatures that's the other one. Angel of Vitality will get +2/+2 as long as we have 25 or more life. So we're playing Commander, right? So we begin with 40 life. So if we get Angel of Vitality onto the battlefield, I think we could pretty much just assume it's going to be a 4/4 flying for a total of 3 mana with that extra 1 life gain every time we gain life. Bilbo approves, and that cake gets even tastier. Speaking of gaining life, Boon Reflection, an enchantment for 4 and 1 white mana, says whenever we gain life, we gain twice that much life instead. Yes, that's Alhammarret's Archive in enchantment form, minus the peripheral benefit of drawing additional cards. But that's okay. We don't mind sticking an enchantment onto our side of the battlefield. They usually have more lasting power on the game, and let's face it, it's only going to be a matter of time until we've gained enough life to activate Bilbo's ability, particularly if we have Boon Reflection and Alhammarret's Archive on our side of the battlefield at the same time. Now, anytime we gain life, we're quadrupling it. All right, next up we have our first class of the video, we have Cleric class. For 1 white mana, this enchantment comes into play, and if we would gain 1 life, we gain that much life plus 1 instead. What is this? They gain 1 extra life each turn deck? Bilbo's got it. Bilbo started it. Angel of Vitality carried it further, and now Cleric class has it as well. All right. So we could pay 1 and 1 white mana. I'm sorry, that's 3 and 1 white mana. Get a little closer there with the camera. For 3 and 1 white mana, we can level up this Cleric class to go to level 2, which means that whenever we gain life, we put a +1/+1 counter on target creature we control. Note that each time we gain a level, we still have the previous levels activated on the class. So even though we move to level 2 to get the +1/+1 counter ability, we still get to gain that 1 extra life whenever we gain life. And then for 4 and 1 white mana to gain level 3 of this class, and when we do, we return target creature card from our graveyard to the battlefield, and then we gain life equal to its toughness. With enough peripheral life gaining, life doubling, and extra life gain on our side of the battlefield, contemplating that 4 and a white to get a creature into play, well, that could potentially be game ending. You'll see that later in this video. Plus, note that we do not have to activate level 3 at sorcery speed. We could do that at any point during the game. It can be during our opponent's turn if they're sending a creature our way. We can surprise them with a nice blocker, or maybe we just need to set up a game-ending combo to get the life that we need to either just flat out win the game at the end step of our last opponent, at the end step of our opponent, and at the end step of our last opponent in turn order, or if we need to set up Bilbo's ability. Either way, Cleric class is going to be a fantastic addition in this kind of deck, and I cannot wait for Bilbo to give it a whirl. We've had a bunch of cards. Well, we've had 2 cards. 2 out of the 4 support cards here for Bilbo has helped to double the life that we gain. Well, here's another way in which that we're going to double some life gain. This time it's going to be at the expense of our opponents, and that is Debt to the Deathless. For X, 2 white and 2 black mana at sorcery speed, each opponent loses 2 times X life. We gain life equal to the life lost this way. I prefer, if we are sculpting a deck and it's a life gain build or a life drain build or however you want to call it, if white and black are in the color identities, I will always turn to Debt to the Deathless before I turn to Exsanguinate. Now, for anyone who's unfamiliar with Exsanguinate is 1X and 2 black mana, and it has each opponent lose X life, and then we gain X life. So I think that's what it is. I don't think we gain the amount of life that was lost. I think we just gain X life. You let me know in the comment section if I'm wrong, of course, but I'm pretty sure we just gain X life. So for Debt to the Deathless, maybe it is gain life equal to life lost. No, I think it's just a straight like life drain, a global life drain. Either way, this is why I prefer Debt to the Deathless over Exsanguinate. You want to jam in a ton of mana to cast these huge life drain spells because you really want your opponent's life totals to be impacted. Gaining that life is nice, but it's more important that most of the time, it's more important that our opponent's life totals are ticking southward. So let's say that you really want to jam a ton of mana into X. Well, when we consider X plus the colored mana symbols for the overall mana cost of the card, once the overall total mana spent on Debt to the Deathless and Exsanguinate, once the total mana spent exceeds 8, Debt to the Deathless gives more life loss to our opponents than Exsanguinate. Because remember, the text says each opponent loses 2 times X life. So if we're paying a total of 8 mana into Debt to the Deathless, 4 of it's going to X. So they're only going, actually, it's a little less than that now that I look at it. It's actually to the 6 points. So if we cast Debt to the Deathless and X is 2, and we're spending a total of 6 mana, we're having each opponent lose 4 life. If we take that same 6 mana, 2 for X, 2 for white, 2 for black, and jam that into Exsanguinate, X is going to equal 4. So Exsanguinate is going to have each opponent lose 4 life. So any amount of mana that we spend on this spell versus Exsanguinate, North of 6 is going to be a better overall investment in Debt to the Deathless than it is for Exsanguinate. And as long as you have white and black in the build of a Life Gain or Life Drain deck, you always prioritize Debt to the Deathless for that reason over Exsanguinate. All right, next up, we have a Golgari edition, our first one here, and it is Dina Soul Steeper. We have a 1/3 legendary Dryad Druid for our Golgari colors. Of course, that's 1 black and 1 green mana. Whenever we gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. Let's not overlook that life drain ability, because in this kind of build, we are going to be gaining life all kinds of ways and twice during Friday Night Magic. And as an additional bonus, if needed, we can pay a generic mana, sacrifice another creature, and Dina Soul Steeper gets +X/+O till end of turn, where X is the sacrifice creature's power. I don't know in how many instances we're going to do that, but it is an ability attached to Dina. It's not the reason why she's included in this Bilbo build. It's more that whenever we gain the life, each opponent is going to lose 1 life. That's going to trigger so many times, as you'll see as we near the end of this video. Here's a fantastic way in which it's going to synergize with Dina, and that is whenever we trigger Essence Warden. So we have a 1/1 Elf Shaman for 1 green mana. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, we gain 1 life. Note, it's whenever another creature. It does not have to be a creature we control. We have Essence Warden in play, and if our opponents put creatures in play, they're going to trigger Essence Warden just like we would, and we're going to gain that life. And note that if we have Bilbo in play, a creature comes into play, we gain 1 life, Bilbo adds another life, and if we have Dina in play, our opponents are going to be losing that life too. The disparity in life totals, the further that we get into this game with this type of deck, is going to be chasm-like. Our life total is going to consistently move north, while all of our opponents are going to tick precipitously south, and rather quickly if we have interactions like Dina Soul Steeper on our side of the battlefield. Next up, we're shifting back to another mono-white card, and here we have Heliod Sun-Crowned. Heliod Sun-Crowned. We have a 5/5 legendary enchantment creature god for just 2 and 1 white mana. Heliod is indestructible, and it's not a creature unless our devotion to white is less than 5. So our devotion to white means that we count the number of mana symbols in the mana values of permanents we control. Not any of the abilities, it has to be the mana values of the permanents we control. So if we have 5 or more white mana symbols in those permanents, then Heliod is a creature. If not, then Heliod sits on the battlefield as a legendary, indestructible enchantment. I think for the purposes of this build, let's keep Heliod as an indestructible enchantment, particularly because of all of its abilities underneath. And let's read about them right now. Whenever we gain life, we put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment we control. That's very similar to what we were getting out of level 2 of Cleric class. And additionally, we can pay 1 and 1 white mana and have another target creature gain lifelink until end of turn. Note that it says another target creature, so for some reason we could target our opponent's creatures, but we don't want to do that. Let them gain their own life. We can slap that lifelink, that temporary lifelink boosting onto one of our creatures, send it into combat comfortably as long as we know it can survive, or if for some reason it has evasion or is indestructible, gain that life and then just keep making Bilbo sit and eat piece of cake after cake after cake. But don't make any mistakes about it. With the number of times that we can gain life and the +1/+1 counters that we can throw around, we are going to be a great threat on the battlefield. Listen, Essence Warden, every time a creature's coming into play, it's gaining us a life. If Heliod is on our side of the battlefield, we're slapping a +1/+1 counter on a creature or an enchantment. So if Heliod isn't even a creature and is just an enchantment because its devotion is less than 5, well, guess what? We'll put those +1/+1 counters right onto Heliod and just let it build up until we can swing for an unbelievable amount of damage. And then guess what? Perhaps we end up one-shotting an opponent. It is possible. It's got indestructible. All right, so there we have it. We're going to be gaining life. We put a +1/+1 counter. We're going to put that right here because Heliod itself does not gain us any life. outside of its activated ability. So we're going to put it over here on the synergistic side of our life gaining cards and abilities. All right, next up, we're going to our first Selesnya card of this video, and it's going to be a doozy. It's Lethiel, the Bounteous Dawn. Here we have a 2/2 legendary unicorn with lifelink for 2 in the aforementioned Selesnya colors. That's 1 green and 1 white mana. At the beginning of each end step, note, it's at the beginning of each end step and not just our end step. At the beginning of each end step, if we gained life this turn, distribute up to that many +1/+1 counters among any number of other target creatures. That is going to add up to a lot of +1/+1 counters. You've already seen the amount of life we can gain so far, and we haven't even finished this video yet. And the fact that it's at the beginning, the fact that it's at the and at the beginning of each end step, that means during every single opponent's turn, if we've gained life, we are going to dole out +1/+1 counters like candy from a Pez dispenser. All right, now we're shifting to our first mono black card of this video, and boy, oh boy, this is going to fall right under the category of a Dina Soul Steeper card, and that is Marauding Blight Priest, a 3/2 vampire cleric for 2 and 1 black mana that reads, whenever we gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. That is Dina Soul Steeper. It's going to cost us 1 additional mana to get it onto our side of the battlefield, but we're not going to mind that at all because it's only going to be a matter of time until our opponent's life totals are going to be so dangerously low that they're not going to think, what happened? I'll tell you what happened. Bilbo turned 111. All right, so we have Alhammarit's Archive doubling the life that we gain. We have Boon Reflection doubling the life we gain. And now we have Rock's Faithmender doing the same. This Rhino Monk with a 1/5 body for 3 and 1 white mana also has lifelink. And if we would gain life, we gain twice that much life instead. I would like to live in a world where we're sitting at the EDH table playing a life gain build, and we have the Archive and Boon Reflection and Faith and Rock's Faithmender all on our side of the battlefield at the same time, and maybe an Essence Warden, and our opponents have to sit and think real hard if they want to cast their commander so that we don't end up gaining 4 life just from it coming into play, not to mention all of the other things that we can do as well. Unbelievable synergies so far, and we're not even done yet. All right, we are going back to the mono black card here, similar to Marauding Blight Priest, similar to Dina Soul Steeper, but a little bit more impactful for a little bit more mana. We have Starscape Cleric. Here we have a 2/1 Bat Cleric for 1 and 1 black mana. It has flying, which is a very nice way to do some peripheral combat damage, and it says that this creature can't block, which is fine because for what it does below its flying ability, we don't really want to make this creature block. We want it to stay on the battlefield and do what it does. And what it does is, whenever we gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. However, we seem to overstep the fact that this has the Offspring mechanic. So as we cast this spell for 1 and 1 black mana, we may pay an additional 2 and a black mana, and if we do, then when this creature enters the battlefield, we create a token copy of it that's a 1/1. So it's another flying for 1/1, not a 2/1, but it still has that ability of whenever we gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. So for 5 total mana, we get 2 total creatures with a combined power and toughness of 3/2. Both of them fly. I mean, that's okay. It's not really what their power and toughness are. It's more about the fact that whenever we gain life, each of our opponents will end up losing 1 life times 2 as long as we pay that Offspring ability, as long as we pay the additional cost of the Offspring mechanic. So right then and there with the Starscape Cleric and its copy, that's 1, 2, that's 3, that's 4 right there. Any 4 instances of any time we gain a life, each opponent is going to lose a life. So with that in mind, it may be a good idea to start, I don't know, really putting the hammer down on how we're going to gain this life throughout the game. And we've already showcased Essence Warden, so let's now showcase Soul's Attendant, a 1/1 human cleric for just 1 white mana. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, we may gain 1 life. I'm pretty sure that we will gain 1 life. Soul's Attendant, oh, look at that. I went ahead and spoiled the next card. Soul's Attendant is nearly a carbon copy of Essence Warden, and they were both spawned from the OG, the Soul Warden. 1/1 for 1 white mana and another human cleric. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, we gain 1 life. So right there we have 3 instances of whenever a creature comes into play, we gain 1 life. And we have all these instances here of gaining benefits from whenever we gain life. We got life doublers. No wonder that cake over there for Bilbo was so big. He deserves every slice of it. All right, so with such a huge burgeoning, yeah, you saw how I did that, right? With a huge burgeoning life total on our hand, why don't we include a card that can help us actually take advantage of that outside of making our opponents moan and groan to, exacerbate and, share profanity-laced statements about this deck? Why don't we tap 8 and 2 white mana at sorcery speed and cast Stormherd? Because if we do, we create X 1/1 white Pegasus creature tokens with flying, where X is our life total. Boy, oh boy, if we had Essence Warden and or Soul's Attendant and or Soul Warden on our side of the battlefield, in addition to maybe a Starscape Cleric or 2, or a Marauding Blight Priest, or a Dina Soul Steeper, boy, oh boy, that seems like it would be a real quick way to end the game, especially if our life totals are so exceedingly high and our opponents are so exceedingly low. Actually, you know what? We're going to put this card right underneath Bilbo because we are going to consider that to be a win condition. All right, we've only got a handful of cards left before we bring this Lifegain themed build to a close. We're going back to another mono white card, and this time we have Sunscorch Regent, a 4/3 dragon with flying for 3 and 2 white mana. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, we put a +1/+1 counter on Sunscorch Regent, and we gain 1 life. Now, I don't suspect that this is really going to slow down our opponents from casting their spells. It's just a +1/+1 counter, and it's just gaining 1 life. However, if we put this bad boy into play in the mid to late game, where the life total discrepancy is shack-like to any other normal human being, they may think twice about giving us that 1 free life to gain so that they don't lose too many life on the back end. Either way, Sunscorch Regent is a big dragon with flying that will get bigger that we can send into combat for some evasive combat damage. All right, next up, sticking with our mono white theme, we have the Gaffer. How do you not look at this card and just want to laugh? We have a 2/3 legendary halfling peasant for 2 and 1 white mana. At the beginning of each end step, oh, you gotta love to read that line in a Lifegain deck. At the beginning of each end step, if we gained 3 or more life this turn, we draw a card. I'm pretty sure that the Gaffer here is going to have us drawing cards like nobody's business. The fact that if we can get Soul Warden and or Soul's Attendant and or Essence Warden into play and having these creatures come into play, gaining us our life, maybe we're adding life to it or doubling it, the Gaffer is going to put so many cards into our hand, it may need to retire or at least move up from peasant status to something a bit higher. All right, next up, we're going back to our mono black cards. And if we're running Lifegain, and if we got black in the color identity, then you know it's only a matter of time until we showcase Vito, Thorn of the Dusk Rose. Here we have a 1/3 legendary vampire cleric for 2 and 1 black mana. And whenever we gain life, target opponent loses that much life. It's not each opponent, it's just target opponents. So there is some variability here. Of course, we could just look to get rid of the mono blue mage at the table. That's everyone's first target anyways. Or we can roll a die and make it randomized so that we don't become hated by every single person at the table. There's a lot of ways in which we can play veto here. That part is just okay. It's the bottom block of text that interests me a lot more in this Bilbo Lifegain deck, and that is paying 3 and 2 black mana, creatures we control gain lifelink until end of turn. That could be all we need to end up winning the game. We send our creatures with lifelink into combat. Either they're going to get blocked by creatures that will gain life through the combat damage dealt to those creatures, or they're not blocked and they're going to gain life because of the combat damage dealt to the opponent. And then if we have any or of these combination of cards to have them lose even more life, well, Bilbo's just going to sit there in the command zone. He may not even need to come out. He'll just sit there and watch through icing on the fingertips and all over his mouth as he's just going after slice of that cake. All right, MTGBC, the last card of this Bilbo Lifegain themed build. It is an artifact for 4 generic mana that should make sure that the cards flow into our hand like slices of cake at Bilbo's birthday party. And that is Well of Lost Dreams. For just the aforementioned 4 generic mana, whenever we gain life, we may pay X, where X is less than or equal to the amount of life we gained, and if we do, we draw X cards. So as long as we have mana available, the life gain is going to stream like nobody's business. As long as we have that mana available, we're going to pay it, we're going to make sure we have our hand filled with cards, and we're just going to completely out-resource, out-produce, out-gain our opponents, and just whittle them down with the life loss, our life total gains. And Bilbo, he's just one happy birthday halfling. All right, there we have it, MTGBC. We have a Lifegain themed build with Bilbo Birthday Celebrant as its commander. These are the building blocks. You let me know in the comment section below. What are your thoughts about this build? This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic.